Hello everyone, I'm here with my cat Carlos. Say hello to my crowd. Anyway, this is my son's first synthesizer, the Blip Blocks. And I also bought my first synthesizer just like some days ago. This is going to be a video series about me exploring this synthesizer. Because if you know me a little bit, then you know that I'm mostly into in-the-box only software, which is why I'm also developing my own software. My entire life I was just using my computer to make music. Of course, I also played some instruments every now and then, but I was, mostly making beats on my computer. So now I have an actual hardware synthesizer and I try to find out what are the pros and cons of hardware synthesizers. Now obviously my position regarding this is quite unique because I have no experience with these machines. I can probably not see every feature immediately that would definitely pop out to a real synth enthusiast right away when looking at the synthesizer in question, which I will show you very soon. But this unique position also makes me very competent in the way that if you, the viewer, is actually building their own hardware synth and you want to know how the ideas translate to someone who has experience with VST plugins but not with hardware, then you can see immediately what these things are that pop out and which features don't. So this is going to be interesting for you and probably also interesting to every musician who, just like me, also has only experience with VST plugins and wants to know if it's worth it to get a synthesizer, because these things are quite expensive, My setup is a normal desk, by the way. Don't expect any RGB madness, except maybe inside of my computer there is a graphics card, yes, but apart from that, this is a normal desk where I produce music and make plugins. And now this desk also has a synthesizer on it, and it's by Modal Electronics, and it's called Argon 8 voice wavetable synthesizer. And yeah, it's pretty cool. So you already see the main features. You can play music with the keys, and you have a joystick that you can use to modulate things into different directions. And most presets that I tested so far are mapped in a way that pulling it to the left and right is pitch bend, and up and down is always mapped to different things depending on the preset. Oftentimes something that changes the timbre thingy. So let me put my cat ears aside. Check out this nice little screen. When I press a key and turn this thing, I got a filter. So you hear some aliasing going on, and that's because this is a fully digital synthesizer. That makes it interesting because this is basically a VST plugin wrapped around some hardware. So the only difference between a VST plugin and the synthesizer is that you can touch this thing, basically. Carlos, when a synthesizer costs 600 euro and you get a synthesizer VST with basically the same features for free, is it worth it? Is it worth having all of this hardware around when you could also have it all in the box attached to a master keyboard? What would you say? Answer my question, Carlos. What would you say? Carlos seems pretty relaxed about this information. So now, considering that Carlos thinks that it's alright, we try to find out what he means by that. I can already see one of the advantages of having hardware, which is that you can use multiple hands, which I cannot demonstrate here because one of my hands must hold the phone, but you can use multiple hands to touch the knobs, so you could maybe modulate cutoff and resonance at the same time, or you could play the keys and change the joystick at the same time, which is kind of cool, and I already noticed how that changes my playstyle compared to how I would use a VST plugin. Like, because touching anything here is the equivalent to making automation or modulation, and I'm just not so akin to modulate everything non-stop in a DAW. But here, when I have a hardware synthesizer, I'm doing that. So I would say one of the key differences between a VST plugin and a hardware synthesizer can definitely be said that it's just a different workflow, and a different workflow means you make different music. And now the question is just, is this music better than the music that you would make just in the box? Or maybe that is a stupid question. The real question should be, is it different? Because I don't wanna like put a label on it, like what is better or what is worse, but maybe each of these workflows has its own benefits. That's a better way to phrase it. Now the next thing I want to talk about is that my desk is really not tidied up. Just kidding. I want to talk about this application here, which came with a synthesizer. So the representation of the synthesizer Argon 8 as a software for the computer within the Modal app. And yeah, the Modal app apparently has a software representation of all synthesizers by Modal Electronics, which is really cool and has a great workflow so far. For example, when I'm turning the joystick, you can see that XY pad moving. When I'm turning the waveform of this wavetable, you can see that happening as well, and that's pretty nice. And you can also change the things from the screen, and it will change in the synthesizer in real time, which is kind of funny. And you might wonder why, because in plugins, like also seen here, there is always a start and an end point to each knob. But the reason why this works is because these knobs are actually endless knobs. You can turn them endlessly. Only the way they are interpreted has a limit. So you cannot turn it even more down, no matter how much you turn it. And that is a genius way to combine hardware with software, in my opinion. I'm really blown away by how smart this is. Now, one thing that I'm probably not going to talk about a lot is how it sounds. Because honestly, this is definitely just a VST plugin wrapped in hardware. So there is no point in saying, oh, this sounds so good and that's the reason why you have to buy a hardware. This is the hardware source. No, it is not. This is purely digital. And I don't know, maybe at some point I will also buy an analog synth, so I can explore this very controversial question. But for now, the only thing that I can discover about this when it comes to sound is how good the sound of this particular synthesizer is. And if I like it, if I like the presets, and if I like the filters and stuff like that. But these statements will have no value about hardware in general or anything like that. Totally not. One of the big reasons why I bought a hardware synthesizer though is because I wanted to have something that I can touch without having to use my computer. And so far this isn't the case, I can tell you that, because my girlfriend refuses to have speakers in the living room except for the ones that we already have here, because it doesn't fit to her style. So I need to get another way to play this synthesizer, because obviously I don't expect the synthesizer itself to have speakers, because then it would be even more expensive just to have some crappy speakers that don't sound good anyway. So I do like the idea that speakers need to be separated from the synthesizer, but what I don't like is that I don't have a solution for that for this particular room yet. So this is also something that I want to explore, especially because of my 4-year-old son who also likes synthesizers a lot. And I wish that this thing could just not be on my desk, but like on the floor sometimes, so that he can just turn it on and immediately play with it. That was one of the reasons why I searched very long for a good synthesizer, because a lot of synthesizers don't have a lot of knobs for controlling the sound, you know. And I wanted to have something where he can be all like, oh, I want to turn this, I want to turn that, and then get some crazy sounds and maybe experience similar moments of fascination as I did when I first checked out Synth 1 by Ichiro Toda, but like without VST plugins, because he cannot use the computer very well yet. So I thought that this would be one of the ways to introduce synthesis to him even earlier than it was introduced to me. Alright everyone, let me know what you think about the concept of this series, of the upcoming series of videos. What do you want to know about this hardware synthesizer? What can you already tell me about it? And I don't know what else you were thinking about when watching this video. See you next time.